My ex-husband Robert married the murderer of my daughter. They had a son and a daughter, a happy and complete family, while I spent 20 years trying to catch the killer. I became ill from overwork, eventually diagnosed with late-stage liver cancer. Before I died, I learned the killer was my sister, Emily. It was even she who had encouraged me to persist in finding the killer, even after my divorce. Emily removed every obstacle in my path and took everything I had. With my last ounce of strength, I pushed her out the window, choosing to perish together. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn, back to the morning my daughter went missing. Mommy, mommy. Was I in hell, that I could hear my deceased daughter's voice so clearly? Mom, let's go. I snapped my eyes open. My daughter's tender hand was gripping my skirt hem, calling out to me, acting coy/pleading. I reached out incredulously to touch Sophia's face. I pinched her soft, warm face, looking around at the strange, yet familiar surroundings. The furniture was from my home 20 years ago. I was certain I was reborn. Sophia and I were on our way to the riverfront park to fly a kite. The one who invited us was my own sister, Emily. I checked the time. In 3 hours, she would make her move on my daughter. Just then, my phone rang. Just like in my previous life, Emily urged me to hurry and leave. My sister had been incredibly lazy since childhood. For her to proactively suggest preparing all the barbecue supplies and inviting me out, it was highly unusual. In my previous life, I hadn't noticed these details at all. I answered the phone. Emily asked, "Christina, have you left with Sophia?" Her voice held a subtle tremor. Killing for the first time, she must have been scared. If I hadn't been reborn, I never would have connected these details. This time, I would return her the most miserable life possible. I replied in a cheerful voice, "We're leaving right now." On the way, I carefully recalled everything that happened in my previous life. I was 5 years older than Emily. Although I was her older sister, I treated her like a mother, taking meticulous care of her. I never dreamed she would harm my daughter, her own niece. Our family lived in the remote countryside. Our parents were working out of town since we were young, leaving us to be cared for by our elderly Grandma Rose. Grandma Rose was old and couldn't look after both of us. I worked hard to take care of Emily until she grew up. The year I was in my senior year of high school, Dad George accidentally broke his leg, and our family lost its source of income. After discussing it, Mom and Dad George reluctantly made both of us drop out of school. I went out to take on odd jobs, and Emily stayed home to farm and do housework. That year, Emily was only 13. My grades were good, ranked among the best at the local high school. My teachers said I had no problem getting into a top university. But I was already an adult then, and I was the only one who could take on odd jobs to earn money for the family. I left school reluctantly but vowed not to let Emily experience the same life as me. I told Mom and Dad George that I could earn money and send it home, but the condition was that Emily couldn't drop out of school. For the sake of my wages, Mom and Dad George had to grit their teeth and agree. After that, no matter how much money I earned each month, I only kept 100 for daily necessities and sent the rest home. But Emily failed to meet my expectations. She only got into a regular college. I didn't blame her. Instead, I felt it was my own failing. The local high school environment was limited. I should have earned more money and sent her to a university in the city. Perhaps her life would have been better. To better look after her and also to prevent her from being misled by bustling city life and cheated by a jerk/loser early on, I specifically went to the city where she attended school to take on odd jobs. I rented an apartment near campus. Emily was the same as before. She would bring her dirty laundry for me to wash every week. She said the school cafeteria food wasn't good. Whenever she came, I would make her the best meals. When she wasn't there, I would just fill my stomach with just a piece of bread. Later, I was fortunate enough to meet my husband, and life gradually became stable. I knew Emily liked my husband's handsome appearance and successful career. But when I first met my husband Robert, he was a haggard, pathetic, failed entrepreneur. If she had met Robert then, she definitely wouldn't have thought highly of him and wouldn't have stayed with him to start a business. People, they all like to reap where others have sown. The location for the barbecue was carefully chosen by Emily. It was a riverfront park with fine sand, something rarely seen in this city surrounded by mountains. It was a recreational area that had just become popular but hadn't been fully developed yet. In my previous life, the police told me it was difficult to find clues here because it was deserted and had no surveillance cameras. The police also told me that it was deserted because 2 murders had occurred nearby half a month prior. In the bushes by the riverfront park, a young couple on a date was killed. The boy's body was found very early, but the girl's body was only discovered a week later in a wooden cabin behind the mountain. A week before that, an elderly woman selling fruit was also strangled to death nearby. After the incident, my husband Robert kept blaming me, saying I only knew about housework and children, was closed off, and ignored important news like this. He called me a stupid woman who didn't care about her child. After my daughter went missing, Emily was always with me. Without an accomplice, the plan couldn't have been completed smoothly. I didn't know if Robert was her accomplice. If he was, I felt such a man shouldn't live either. I arrived with Sophia as planned. Sophia loved flying kites. Holding the string, she ran on the soft sand, innocent and happy. I clenched my fists, vowing to protect this lively and lovely figure. Just like in my previous life, when the time came, Emily said she forgot to buy water and asked me to go to the corner store by the highway. I teased her with a smile. You're such a big girl now. You can't even do these small things right. What kind of man will want to marry you in the future? Perhaps it was the first time she heard me speak sarcastically. Emily was visibly surprised. But she wouldn't get angry with me now, otherwise, her suspicion for Sophia's disappearance would be even greater. She smiled and said, acting coy/pleading, Christina, my foot hurts. Can you please go for me? I stood up, brushed the sand off my pants, and instructed her, you must keep Sophia by your side. She's small and might wander off. Emily cheerfully said, don't worry. When I returned with the water, Emily and Sophia were gone. My friend Sarah was sitting by the barbecue grill, eating a freshly grilled beef skewer. She smiled at me and gave me an okay sign. Shortly after, Emily rushed over frantically, tears in her eyes. What should I do? Sophia is gone. I frowned. Where did she disappear from? She wiped away a tear from her eye and said, I was grilling meat here just a moment ago, and Sophia was gone. I searched frantically all around, but I couldn't find her. Sarah said slowly and deliberately, are you kidding us? Emily froze, then recognized it was my friend Sarah. She exclaimed in surprise, Sarah, why are you here? Sarah said slowly and deliberately, I'm off today. Emily said she was coming for a barbecue, so I came along. Besides, when I arrived just now, I clearly saw you holding Sophia's hand by the highway over there. How can you say she's gone? Emily's face instantly turned pale. I patted her shoulder as if joking, all right, hurry up and bring Sophia out. Her favorite beef skewers are ready. Just then, my phone rang. I picked it up and glanced at it. It was a message from a friend confirming Sophia was safe. The person who took Sophia with Emily was Alex. I knew this person. He was Emily's college boyfriend. Their relationship wasn't very long. After I discovered the scandalous deeds the man had done, Emily decisively broke up with him. I now suspect her purpose for dating this boyfriend was to find an accomplice. Knowing Sophia was safe, I no longer needed to pretend. I pushed Emily, looking left and right, hurry up and bring Sophia over. She's only 5 years old. It's very dangerous to leave her alone. Emily didn't move, probably trying to think of a countermeasure. After a moment of hesitation, she burst into tears. Christina, I'm sorry, I really don't know where Sophia is. With that, she started crying loudly. I had no choice but to call the police. The police arrived quickly. My friend said the last time she saw Sophia was by the highway. And it was Emily holding Sophia's hand. Because she knew Emily was my sister, and an aunt wouldn't harm her niece, she didn't think much of it. After saying that, Sarah scrolled through her phone and pulled up a photo. In the photo, Emily was standing by the highway, holding Sophia's hand. Sarah explained, I thought the background was beautiful and it matched Sophia's pink dress well, so I quietly took a picture, planning to show it to Sophia later. With the evidence, Emily was speechless. Emily finally had to admit that she had given Sophia to her boyfriend, Alex. Alex's phone was unreachable, and she didn't know where the child was. Of course, his phone was unreachable. Alex had been knocked unconscious by my friends and left in a remote area. He probably wasn't awake yet. When the police asked her the reason for kidnapping the child, she insisted, "It wasn't kidnapping. I just wanted to play a prank on Christina." I didn't expect Alex to actually take the child away. She was trying to pass the blame to Alex. Robert heard Sophia was missing and rushed to the police station. I threw myself into his arms, crying and accusing Emily of being ungrateful, of kidnapping our daughter to extort money. Robert was incredulous. "She doesn't seem like that kind of person." I secretly watched his expression. Was my husband truly unaware? Was he also an accomplice? Robert's furrowed brows and incredulous eyes didn't reveal anything. Emily cried, begging me to forgive her, promising she would help me find Sophia. But I stubbornly refused. "If anything happens to Sophia, that's intentional harm, and I will make you pay the price." Emily was formally detained/arrested. Robert accompanied me home to wait for news. Sarah, under the guise of comforting me, asked me to meet her. She found it incredible that I had hidden my daughter myself and sent Emily to the detention facility. "Weren't you the one who doted on her the most, unwilling to let her suffer even a little?" I couldn't explain about being reborn. I just hugged Sarah. I had a serious illness and suddenly understood a lot of things. I don't want to waste my time and energy on people and things that aren't worth it anymore. Sarah and I were originally colleagues at a coffee shop, working shifts together. Later, we developed a deep friendship. After that, I married Robert and started a business together. My friend Sarah had attended night school to study design, and after getting married, she and her husband co-founded a renovation company. Both of our lives were thriving. In my previous life, Sarah didn't think highly of Robert, saying he seemed malicious. I didn't pay attention and was instigated by Robert, who said she was jealous of how well I was doing. So I gradually drifted apart from Sarah. Later, Sarah accidentally hit and broke her leg, becoming bedridden. I was busy searching for my daughter and neglected her, gradually losing contact. It wasn't until I was seriously ill that I thought to visit her, only to be shocked to realize she had passed away 5 years earlier. From her husband, I learned that during the years she was bedridden, she posted online every day about my daughter, hoping for help from anyone with information. Since fate gave me another chance, I would protect this friendship and change our destiny. I told her about Robert and Emily being together. Sarah was so angry she gritted her teeth. "Robert is a terrible person. He could abandon his own child." I shook my head. Robert didn't have much desire for women. He had other motives. I would tear off his mask little by little. Not just him, but also those relatives who seemed seemingly friendly, yet in critical moments, not only didn't help me but maliciously pushed me into the abyss. Sarah then asked, "So where is Sophia now?" She frowned. "Robert's friend who tried to steal your husband? Didn't you always hate him?" At least his feelings were genuine, and it was also true he would do anything for me. I met David through my husband Robert. David was an orphan. He and Robert met when working as car mechanics. Robert was 2 years older than David and took good care of him, so David always called him Big Brother. Not long after I married Robert, David moved into our already small home under the pretense of finding a job. Knowing about his wandering life as a child and Robert praising him as reliable and capable, I gave him special care out of pity. Every day, there would always be one of his favorite foods in the meal. When buying clothes for Robert, I would also get him a set. When he had appendix surgery, I stayed with him the whole time, providing care. But David started intentionally or unintentionally showed his affection/made advances towards me. He boldly said he only loved me in this life and wouldn't marry anyone but me. A friend's wife is off limits. I felt he had character issues, especially when he solemnly swore he would go through hell and high water for me. I saw him even more as a jerk who lied without batting an eye. After Sophia went missing, Robert advised me to give up and declare Sophia dead. But I stubbornly refused, insisting on finding her, dead or alive. David stayed by my side throughout my long search. He stayed for 20 years. When I was terminally ill, he was also by my side. He cried like a baby, saying he was incapable of saving me, that he was a useless man. It was then I realized his words were all true. He kept his word. So this time, when I called him and asked for help, he agreed without hesitation. Before going home, I sent a subtle text message to David. "Is everything secure?" He quickly replied, "Everything's fine, don't worry." I received a call from Dad George. "Emily, you can't harm your sister. We're family, after all." Seeing I wouldn't forgive her, Emily must have had someone inform Dad George and Mom Mary. Dad George had been staying cooped up at home for years. I wondered if he had gone stir-crazy. I emphasized, "She kidnapped my daughter, the daughter I carried for 10 months. Dad George said sternly, "She was also carried by your mom for 10 months. If something happens to her, how will you face your mom?" His logic was laughable to me. Their daughter was a daughter, but wasn't mine too? In my previous life, I also blamed Emily for not taking good care of Sophia, but I was harshly criticized by Mom and Dad George, who said that was my daughter. I couldn't watch her properly, and I was trying to pass the blame to my own sister. A year later, Sophia was no news/trace. Robert advised me to have another child, but Mom and Dad George strongly opposed it. They told me a daughter is flesh and blood, and if I didn't look for her, I was worse than an animal and unfit to be a mother. They also called Robert heartless. But after Emily married Robert, they not only praised the son-in-law, but also moved in together, happy and harmonious. It's clear that Mom and Dad George still favored the younger daughter the most. I, the older daughter, could be sacrificed anytime. I even suspected now that they were aware of Emily's actions. I would take the opportunity to hide Sophia, just to let these people's true colors would be revealed and eliminate future trouble. I screamed into the phone at Dad George, a heart-wrenching scream. "I don't care. Unless she brings my daughter back, I won't be done with her. If you think her killing my daughter is right and proper, then we'll sever ties." The next day, the police caught Alex in the apartment just as he returned. He still had a bandage wrapped around his head. Upon seeing the police, I heard he was so scared he peed his pants. The child wasn't with Alex. Alex initially denied it, saying Emily had mentioned kidnapping Sophia, but he hadn't agreed. Alex adamantly denied it and said he had gotten into a fight and injured his head, and the bandage was proof. Now the focus shifted back to Emily. Mom and Dad Mary rushed overnight to my house. Before they could speak, I decided to accuse them first. Block their path, leave them defenseless. I cried out loud at Dad George and Mom Mary. "Mom and Dad, it's because you spoiled her since childhood, always using the excuse that I was the older sister and telling me to give way to her. You spoiled her rotten, making her think harming my daughter was also taken for granted. Because no matter what she did wrong, you always had her back. Give me back my daughter. Give me back my daughter." While crying, I went up and grappled with them. "If Emily told me to die, would you also wish I would die sooner?" Mom and Dad Mary looked very bad. They had prepared many things to say, but at that moment, they couldn't speak. But soon, emotion overcame reason. Mom Mary tried to persuade me we're family after all. If we don't stick together, this family will fall apart. I said in a firm tone, if I don't have Sophia, let it fall apart. I looked at Mom and Dad Mary resentfully, who wanted to speak but stopped. If our family unity means harming our own family members, I don't need such relatives anymore. 3 months later, when Emily was out on bail from the detention facility, it was just in time for Sophia's 5th birthday. I specifically chose a luxurious hotel ballroom downtown and invited all our relatives and friends, including Robert and his business partners. When Emily appeared in a plain white dress, her eyes still had faint dark circles, traces of insomnia from the detention facility. "Christina, I bought Sophia a gift." She held up a pink gift box, her fingertips trembling slightly. I smiled and took it, opening it in front of everyone. Inside was an exquisite Barbie doll, the very one Sophia had been crying and wanting in the mall last week. Sounds of admiration rose from the crowd. Mom Mary quickly smoothed things over. Emily still cares about Sophia. After all, she's her own aunt. I gently stroked the doll's golden hair and suddenly snapped off its left arm. "Mom, do you remember? That year I was 15, to raise tuition for Emily, I worked a summer job at a factory and a machine crushed my finger." I raised my right hand. A faint scar still remains on my ring finger. At that time, Emily said. "Christina, when I grow up, I'll definitely buy you the best diamond ring in the world." The atmosphere instantly froze in the ballroom. Emily's face turned from pale to green. Robert coughed twice, trying to ease the tension. "Today is Sophia's birthday. Let's cut the cake first." "No rush." I interrupted him, taking a document from my handbag and slapping it onto the table. "This is the civil complaint/lawsuit for Emily's kidnapping case. She incited an accomplice for unlawful detention of a minor. I'm demanding $3 million in compensation for emotional distress." The glass in Mom Mary's hand clattered to the floor, shards splattered at Emily's feet. She staggered back half a step, then ran into Sophia running down the spiral staircase, followed by David. "Mommy, Uncle David bought me a unicorn cake." Sophia rushed into my arms. Her hair still had cream on it. David was wearing a sharp suit, cufflinks pinned to his cuffs that I had given him. His gaze swept across Emily's face with cold scrutiny. Robert's face was extremely grim. "Christina, haven't you made enough of a scene? We're all family." "Family?" I sneered, pointing at Emily. "Then explain why. The first day she was out of custody, you transferred $500,000 to her account?" The whole place was in an uproar. Robert suddenly turned to look at Emily, who frantically waved her hands. "No, it's not that. Mom and Dad George made me." "Enough." Dad George slapped the table and stood up, veins bulging on his forehead. "Your sister has just gone through a tough time. Are you trying to destroy her completely? If you hadn't insisted on marrying Robert back then, would Emily have turned out this way?" His words were like a fuse, igniting the anger accumulated over 20 years within me. I suddenly pushed Sophia away, letting her fall into David's arms. I pulled a voice recorder from my pocket. That was the listening device I installed at my parents' house last week. "Emily, don't worry. Robert said that when Sophia is gone, he'll divorce Christina and then divide the property in half for you." Mom Mary's voice came from the speaker. "That kid is stubborn. You need to coax her more. Anyway, if the child is gone, you can have another one. You are our real daughter." Sophia suddenly started screaming. She covered her ears and cowered in David's arms, her eyes full of fear. Emily staggered back, knocking over the champagne tower behind her. Amidst the sound of shattering glasses, she finally broke down. "They forced me. Mom and Dad Mary said as long as I get rid of Sophia, Robert would marry me. They said you were too domineering. This family can only have one woman in charge." Robert's pupils contracted sharply. He suddenly turned to run away, but was kicked to the ground by David. David pulled a document from his inside jacket pocket and slapped it onto Robert's face. "This is the evidence of transferring marital assets and your and Emily's hotel records." "Oh, right. Did you think buying off the orphanage and forging David's adoption papers could make me disappear from the world?" I squatted down and pinched Emily's chin, looking at her terrified look. I said softly, "Did you think only I was reborn? Actually, David also returned 20 years ago. Otherwise, why do you think Alex was rescued in the wilderness? He is currently at the police station, and he confessed everything about your plan." Emily's pupils suddenly dilated. She turned to look at David, who gently shook his head. "Sorry, I only listened to Christina." Just then, the ballroom doors were pushed open, and 2 police officers walked in with a search warrant. Mom Mary screamed and rushed over, but was tightly held back by Dad George. Sophia had already been taken away by Sarah, and her crying could be heard from the corridor. "Wait," I called out to the police, taking a USB drive from my bag. Inside are 3 video clips. The first is the surveillance footage of Emily instructing Alex to kidnap Sophia. The second is Robert's transfer records to Emily. And the third, I looked at Mom and Dad George. "It's the recording of you inciting murder." Dad George's face instantly turned deathly pale. Mom Mary collapsed onto the floor, muttering to herself. Emily suddenly started laughing hysterically. Pointing at me, her eyes were wild. "Did you think you won? Robert slept together with me long ago. While you were pregnant with Sophia, he said you were like a block of wood in bed." "Enough." David suddenly ripped open Robert's shirt, revealing a hickey below his collarbone. "You got this 3 days ago at the Grand Hotel, right?" Unfortunately, the hotel surveillance footage had just been retrieved by the police. Robert completely collapsed to the ground, like a dying fish. As Emily was dragged away by the police, she suddenly turned and smiled at me. There was a strange look of relief in that smile. Christina, did you think you were a champion of justice? Actually, we are all monsters raised by our parents. Do you think you can save Sophia? Look behind you. I suddenly turned around and saw Sophia standing at the top of the spiral staircase, holding a small knife in her hand. The blade was stained with blood. Sarah had collapsed at her feet, a large bloodstain spreading on her abdomen. Sophia, my voice sounded like it was dragged from icy water. How could you? Mommy, Sophia looked up at me. Her face was still smeared with cream. Her smile was innocent and naive. And Emily said as long as she killed the people blocking Daddy and Auntie from being together, we could become a real family. Screams rose and fell throughout the ballroom. David suddenly pushed me away and rushed towards the stairs, but was tripped by Robert and fell to the ground. Sophia walked down step by step. Each step left a bloody footprint on the carpet. I then noticed the bloodstains on her dress. That wasn't cream, it was Sarah's blood. Sophia, give the knife to Mommy. I forced myself to stay calm, slowly walked towards her. Look, Daddy and Aunt Emily are here. We can talk things over properly. Don't lie to me. Sophia suddenly screamed. The tip of the knife grazed my arm. You don't love Daddy at all. You love Uncle David. Aunt Emily said you and Uncle David were going to take Sophia far away and leave Daddy and Auntie. Robert took the opportunity to get up. A glint of calculation flashed in his eyes as he looked at Sophia. Sophia is right, Christina. We are the real family. As long as you drop the lawsuit, I can pretend this never happened. Thud. I slapped him. Blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. Sophia was startled by the sound. I took the opportunity to snatch the knife from her hand and held her tightly in my arms. She was struggling in my arms, screaming, Daddy, help me, while Robert just stood there, his eyes darting around. David, I heard my hoarse voice call an ambulance and, I'm here. He pressed down on my bleeding arm, his gaze firm. I've got this. As the police led Robert and Emily away, Mom Mary suddenly rushed over and hugged me. How could you be so cruel? That's your sister. She's only 23 years old. Are you going to ruin her life? I looked down at her and suddenly smiled. Mom, do you remember when I was 17 and the landlord's son harassed me? Emily was the one who helped me call the police. Later she told me, Christina, I'll protect you from now on. I wiped away the tears from my face. But now she wanted my daughter's life. Mom Mary froze. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The siren of the ambulance sounded in the distance. As Sarah was lifted onto the stretcher, she suddenly grabbed my hand. Christina, don't forget our plan. I nodded gently, watching the ambulance drive away. David handed me a handkerchief. It was only then I realized I had been bleeding. Sophia was taken away by medical personnel for examination. As she passed by Robert, she suddenly turned her head and said, Daddy, you smell of Aunt Emily. Mommy says that's the smell of a bad woman. Robert's face instantly turned paler than a dead person. David said in a low voice, I've already contacted a psychologist. Sophia needs a long time to recover. Looking at the bloodstained Barbie doll in my arms, I said softly, we all need time. Night fell. I sat alone in the ballroom. The bloodstains on the floor had been cleaned up. My phone suddenly rang. It was a video call request from an unknown number. After connecting, Emily's face appeared on the screen. She was sitting on the bed in the detention facility with a strange calm on her face. Christina, did you know? Mom and Dad George never loved us. They just wanted a free babysitter and commodities that could be exchanged for money. What do you want? I gripped my phone tightly. Robert's company had long been bankrupt. She chuckled softly. The assets he transferred were actually Mom and Dad George's retirement money. And she leaned closer to the camera. Sophia's biological father is actually David. I felt my blood ran cold. Emily continued, Did you think Robert really loved you? He just needed a wife who could help him start a business. But David, he is the one who truly loves you. The video suddenly cut off. I sat there stunned until David walked in and gently hugged me. The doctor says Sophia is fine. She just needs to receive psychological treatment. I looked up at him and suddenly asked, "Sophia's father, is that you?" His body suddenly stiffened, his pupils contracted sharply. In the distance, Sophia's crying came again, mixed with the scent of roses lingering in the ballroom, like a long nightmare. On an afternoon with heavy rain pouring down, I held the hard-won paternity test report, standing in the jail visiting room. Emily smiled at me through the bulletproof glass, her fingernails painted crimson red nail polish. That was the last gift I gave her before she went to jail. Surprised, she shook the handcuffs on her wrists. Actually, even Robert didn't know. Back then, in that cup of calming tea he drank, I added triple the dose of sleeping pills. The 99.99% on the report stung my eyes. 3 months ago, David rushed into the hospital through the rain, and the cry of "Sophia is my daughter" seemed to still echo in my ears. It turned out that on the night Robert failed in his business and drank heavily, David was the one who took me to the hospital, and Emily switched the IVF embryos during the chaos. "You lost, Christina." Emily's laughter mixed with the sound of the rain. "Now your daughter's biological father is an accomplice to a murderer, and you." Thud. I slapped a stack of photos against the glass. In the image, Emily was handing the tea mixed with sleeping pills to Robert. The background was a timestamp from the surveillance footage, March 15, 2018, which was exactly the date Sophia was conceived. "This is the new evidence Alex provided from prison." I watched her face suddenly change. "Also, did you think buying off the nurse and tampering with David's psychological evaluation report could make him take the blame for you?" The light in the visiting room suddenly went out. In the darkness, Emily's screams pierced the rain curtain. "How could you?" "Because I gave you what you wanted most." I took out the voice recorder hidden in my sleeve. "For example, telling Robert you were pregnant with his child, and getting Mom and Dad George to transfer all their retirement money to you as pregnancy funds." When the lights came back on, the police were already standing behind Emily. Her appearance struggling wildly was exactly like the little girl who used to steal my candy 20 years ago. I turned and left. Raindrops hit the paternity test report, gradually blurred the words "Father, David Miller" on it. Chapter 20. The Broken Family Photo. On Thanksgiving night, I stood with Sophia in front of the old Miller house. The old oak tree in the yard was still lush, but I no longer saw the little girl who used to chase me calling, "Sister." "Mommy, why are we here?" Sophia gripped my hand tightly. She was wearing a locket given by Sarah on her wrist. The chain was engraved with the words "Stay away from jerks." Sarah chose it herself after she was discharged from the hospital. Because some debts need to be settled. I rang the doorbell. The aged father opened the door. The white hair at his temples was more than 3 months ago. In the living room, Robert and Emily's wedding photo was smashed on the floor. Next to the glass shards was Mom Mary's medical report, early-stage Alzheimer's disease. A photo of Emily in her prison uniform was placed on the mantelpiece. In the photo, she was smiling exceptionally brightly. I took it on her 20th birthday. Before she left, she said what she owed you she would eventually repay. Dad George's voice was like dried branches. "And this, she said you should see." He handed me a metal box. Inside was a yellowed diary. The dates and handwriting were blurred by tears. Mom and Dad George hit me again because she stole eggs from the neighbor to nourish me. I told Emily, "You must study hard and take me away from here in the future." Sophia suddenly pointed at the mantelpiece and screamed. It was then I noticed that in the photo, Emily's hand was pointing at Robert's chest. There was a light-colored birthmark there, exactly the same as the one on Sophia's back of the neck. "Mom," I turned to look at Mom Mary, who was wiping the photo frame. A flicker of clarity flashed in her clouded eyes. "That year, you deliberately had Emily wear my clothes to lure away the human traffickers, right?" Mom Mary's hand froze. The photo frame clattered to the floor. Sophia was scared and hid behind me, but I laughed. That laughter mixed with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves was exactly like the despair of that heavy rain night that year. "Christina, Dad George, I beg you." Dad George suddenly knelt down. "Your sister is gone. Just let this matter." "Dad," I interrupted him. "Do you remember when I was 15 and worked at the factory to raise tuition for Emily?" I rolled up my sleeve, showing the scar. You said then that when Emily became successful, she would buy me the best diamond ring in the world. He trembled and nodded, his eyes full of regret. I took a document from my bag and gently placed it on the mantelpiece. These are the disownment papers and the details of Emily's transferred assets. As for Robert, I looked at the withered roses in the yard. His new lover is reporting him for tax evasion. As we left, Sophia suddenly broke free from my hand and placed a bunch of daisies in front of Emily's photo. Raindrops fell on her hair tips like sprinkled diamonds. I remembered the last page of Emily's diary. If there is a next life, I want to be Christina's sister, not a blood-sucking parasite. Chapter 21. The Reborn Butterfly. In the late spring sunshine, Sophia was running on the lawn chasing butterflies. Sarah was sitting in a wheelchair, laughing and scolding David for burning the steak. In the distance, David's phone rang, the screen showing a call from the orphanage director. It's about the adoption papers from that year. He hung up, a familiar storm in his eyes. The signature on the document is Robert's handwriting. I paused and handed the sliced fruit to Sophia. She took a bite of a strawberry. The juice stained the corner of her mouth red, exactly like the color of the lipstick Emily wore. Perhaps we should go to the police station. I wiped the juice from Sophia's face. And while we're at it, hand over the evidence of Robert forging David's identity papers. Sarah suddenly pointed into the distance and exclaimed. I turned and saw a golden swallowtail butterfly landed on Sophia's hair. The patterns on its wings were exactly like the number on Emily's prison uniform. Sophia giggled and reached out, but the butterfly flapped its wings and flew towards the clear blue sky. Mommy, will the butterfly go to heaven? She looked up, sunlight danced on her eyelashes. I looked at David. He was placing a piece of grilled steak on my plate, wearing the ring I gave him on his ring finger. That was the silver ring I bought with the compensation money from the factory back then. Simple design, but worn for 20 years. Will upheld Sophia's hand, feeling the warmth in her palm. And there are no bad people in heaven, only many, many people who love her. Church bells rang in the distance. David's phone rang again. This time it was a picture message from an unknown number, a yellowed newspaper. The headline was Serial Killer Apprehended, Jealousy Motive Behind 3 Deaths. The girl in the accompanying photo was wearing a floral dress and was the girl from the young couple who disappeared 20 years ago. Wearing around her neck was the necklace Emily lost when she was in college. Sophia suddenly pointed at the sky and exclaimed. A colorful butterfly was flying through the clouds. The spots of light on its wings were like scattered stars. I gripped David's hand, feeling the calluses on his palm. Those were the traces left from working 3 jobs continuously back then to buy formula for Sophia. Everything will be all right, he said softly, and kissed my forehead. Because we have all been reborn. Sophia suddenly turned, opened her arms and ran towards us. The butterfly in her hair flapped its wings and flew away, leaving a brilliant afterimage in the sunlight. I hugged her, smelling the milky scent in her hair, and suddenly remembered the last sentence in Emily's diary. Christina, I'm sorry. Actually, I knew all along, you are the true light. The wind blew across the lawn, bringing the scent of flowers from afar. This time, I can finally say that the past nightmare is over and our life is just beginning.